Mytheresa is one of the leading global luxury fashion e-commerce platforms, shipping to over 130 countries. Founded as a boutique in 1987, Mytheresa launched online in 2006 and currently offers a highly curated edit of over 200 luxury brands with ready-to-wear shoes, bags, and accessories for womenswear, menswear, and kidswear. Today, Markus, Lorenz, and Philipp Barthold, the Chief Technology Officer at Mytheresa.com, talks about building versus buying, efficiency at a scale, finding a reliable team, and having technology serve the business it's designed for. If you're a developer looking for career opportunities, make sure you don't miss out on the ending where we will announce Mytheresa's job openings for developers. Tune in.
Welcome to a new episode of the beCommerce podcast. Today we have a special guest with us. Please welcome Philipp Barthold, the actual CTO of Mytheresa. Mytheresa is one of the leading global luxury fashion e-commerce platforms, which is located in Munich, and Mytheresa is famous for their story, starting with a local boutique in Munich, transforming their business 15 years ago towards e-commerce. But Philipp, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Markus. Thank you for having me. I'm Philipp Barthold. I joined Mytheresa as a CTO about 4 years ago. My background is I was born and raised in Germany, and after some studies, I moved and worked for PayPal in London to build up their risk management for Europe. It was a lot about product development in fraud prevention area. Then in the big eBay empire, PayPal was a part at that time, so was Magento. I switched to Magento. Magento had has, now it's Adobe, development center in Spain, in Barcelona. And there I joined the product development team and was very much focused on payment integration, again, fraud prevention and order management solutions. And then, 4 years ago, I got a call from Mytheresa and joined them as their CTO.
Yeah, super cool. The numbers from Mytheresa are absolutely impressive. So you achieved 30% growth just from July to December in 2020. You did the IPO in the US as a Munich-based company. You have a strong international focus. And as far as I know from the latest number, you increased the net sales for over 36% year over year for the financial year 2021 to about 612.1 million. And also you managed for the financial year 2020, the guardians for the gross merchandise volume at 750 till 770 million euros and adjusted your EBITDA margin in the upper half of the long-term range of 7 till 9%, which is absolutely impressive. But today we're talking a little bit more about tech and IT, so I'm not going too deep into the numbers. And I would like to discuss what challenges you have to tackle and to survive on a day-to-day business to keep constantly growing on such numbers. So let's jump in. Philipp, you're almost 4 years at Mytheresa. So maybe let's start with some numbers and figures as we can announce them for the tech team. So how many people do you have actually in the IT e-commerce sector? Which departments do you have? Meaning, do you run data engineering, front-end, back-end development, and so on and so forth? And maybe you can also give us a glimpse about some traffic figures that the audience get a better understanding of the environment.
Yeah, happy to do so. So we're about 100 people in technology at Mytheresa, and broken down into three main departments. One is really the e-commerce stack. So these is about a bit more than half of the number of total people, broken down into business domains, and then looking after the web store, the mobile app development. All of these teams are supported by a product organization with the respective product owners working with the teams, and a group of QAs and site reliability engineers. The other two groups, one is we do all our ERP development in-house, and the ERP is in many of the processes. We do the core of the system. So anything from inbound products to all the processes in our own warehouse is all done in that team, and that's about 20 people. And then the rest of technology, so anything of our internal infrastructure, client applications and services, and cybersecurity, which is about another 20 people.
Super cool.
In terms of the figures, roughly speaking, we have constantly on site about 60,000 products. plus their respective variants. The platform needs to be able to handle easily high hundreds of orders per hour. And if you look at something like, varnish requests, there we talk about a couple of millions per hour, which the site just needs to be able to support. The business is quite international. Large part is actually outside of Europe, so it's very diverse in the latency challenges, which we constantly face. Strong growth in Asia. Obviously, you need to take care of the setup in that direction.
Yeah, that are also impressive numbers from the tech perspective and from the team perspective. And I would be interested in the organizational development of the company and also on the tech department, of course. So meaning maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the challenges you faced in terms of growing the team by reflecting different angles. So maybe like processes, people, and technologies that the audience get a glimpse of what's going on your side.
Sure. So Mytheresa has, as you alluded to in the beginning, has its roots in actually fashion retail. So it's a fashion retailer which started then its online business. And technology came, if you look at all the different operations, relatively late into the mix at Mytheresa. So initially those services were outsourced, right? The company started, you worked predominantly with SIs to start to operate, build, and run a web store. But technology was introduced at a slightly later stage into this. And today we define ourselves as Mytheresa is at the crossroads between luxury fashion and technology. And these are quite different worlds in many regards. So if you look at the organization, also at processes, the fashion side, as many of the listeners will know, is tuned towards seasons. So, you have two big seasons per year where products come out and all the campaigns are prepared for these different seasons, or the content is produced for this, where on the technology side, you obviously look more into, an agile approach and more short-term things. So certainly one challenge is try to align these different worlds and also the different processes of different departments. We run a version, so when we're now talking more about the e-commerce development, this adapted version of the scaled agile framework, in which we try to use the various interactions with the stakeholders and with the business and feed this into the technology teams.
Yeah, super cool. So I would be personally interested in your approach towards those challenges, because back in the days I had quite several good exchanges with you personally about how to scaling engineering teams and so on and so forth. And for me, it was always helpful to have a kind of peer or mentor. So what would be your recipe to tackle those questions on a day-to-day business, meaning how you're dealing with those challenges and how you're choosing the right answer to the question in the end?
Obviously, a daily challenge which needs daily adjustments. So I personally like to work with coaches to discuss my own professional approaches, things I can learn, and how I can get better, and be open to that feedback. Generally speaking, I think looking at the vast variety of challenges and difficulties, I think the first thing which helps me is just to admit you need to be open to a lot of feedback and external expertise, because there's just no way to be the one giving the guidance in all the different areas. And that comes then along with having a extremely strong team of trusted people, where you say, I trust the expertise other people in the team have, and completely rely on their good ideas. And in order to make that successful, this team of trustees need to have an aligned goal. So if you then build a strong team and you are very clear on your mission and what you want to achieve, then I think this is a very good foundation to tackle the vast variety of different challenges.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Also with that vision mission statement, we heard that also from other industry and tech leaders a lot, that this is definitely building in the end the North Star where the team is heading for. And if you're then not consider yourself to be the smartest guy in the room and you're open for advices from other ones and just come up with a mutual idea, it brings definitely the value to the table. Cool, super cool. So let's switch maybe to the tech part of Mytheresa. And I would be super interested in what is important for you while scaling Mytheresa tech-wise, meaning how is your infrastructure and the e-commerce environment designed, and what are the most crucial architectural patterns for you to constantly grow at this pace with the company?
You're hitting there on the single most important topic, and this is the growth and the scale. So we need to bear scale constantly in mind. To start off with, obviously, any code and anything we produce needs to be extremely maintainable. So it needs to be readable. You always need to bear in mind that other people will touch that very, very soon. And therefore, the code quality is at the core of it. And in terms of frameworks and architectural patterns, of course, looking into microservices, of course, have a very strong API layer to support various front ends is core of it. But I like more this approach to say we try to make a composition of the best of breeds for different services and different products, because that often enough makes it much easier to migrate or to upgrade, because we constantly need to upgrade and change things. So there is a balance to say, yes, we want to identify what is really core to our business, and there overinvest in a way to say, okay, we need to gain and build this expertise. But then also keep it at a level that it is upgradable in different parts and not necessarily in one big step. Good practices in the software development are core to it, and code maintainability is clearly one of them. So to have a clean code and which is readable, because it's very unlikely that there's one group of engineers who's only looking after one part of the system. So to have that easily learnable for others is, I think, at the core of it. And when it comes down to the different frameworks, I mean, of course, we're looking into when do we want to set up a microservice for this. Of course, we are working on the various headless approaches with a very strong API layer. The infrastructure runs in a Kubernetes cluster in order to scale also on the infrastructure side. But I like the general approach to say we want to have a good mix of the best of breed solutions, which are tailored to our business needs. So being very well aware of where do we want to have our solution, again, what makes our business special in a way, or in other circumstances, take off-the-shelf services and solutions and integrate those.
Yeah, that makes totally sense for me. Adapting composable commerce and setting a best-of-breed architecture, that is definitely state-of-the-art, I would say, and also holding the company back from getting to a dead end and not transforming the infrastructure to serve, in the end, the client needs. Maybe I ask this question where e-commerce pure players should set the focus, because today we're observing that people, and especially young and wild developers, try to build everything on their own. So in case of Mytheresa, do you have more capabilities than normal pure players, I would say? But what is your strategy on build versus buy? How are you approaching that on Mytheresa?
Great question, and obviously, if I had the single answer on that would be awesome. I think it goes down to understand well and to define well for you what makes your business special, and that have that clearly defined, and then be absolutely open to invest into that area versus other areas which may be less interesting. To take an example, in Mytheresa, campaign management is somewhat unique and somewhat special. So there we built a lot of our own solutions because it's what drives this business to a large degree. But on other areas where it's about whatever, an integration into a payment service provider or into some other external service, maybe you just buy those kind of integrations or even outsource them to some extent. So to me, one of the key challenges is, or key helping points on buy versus build is what is unique to your business, and then try to factor that in.
Yeah, I totally agree, because then you're faster on the client side and serve really the client needs. Absolutely. But also I see a kind of downside in this approach, because in the end you might end up in technical debt, or maybe you'll build up also technical diversity, let's call it like that. And from my observation, it's also crucial to deal with technical debt in conscious. And one of my old architects said very wisely, the decisions from today are the legacies from tomorrow. I really like that metaphor, so to say. And constantly adding new tools or programming languages to the infrastructure might be hot at the moment, but will definitely raise the complexity and will increase the maintenance work. So how you're achieving a conscious treatment of legacies also aligned with the business stakeholders?
The core point again is to factor scale into your decisions. And to me, one of these things is with the current growth we are proud of and we are enjoying is like everything doubles in 3 years or triples in 5 years. And everything is the number of customers, the number of transactions, the number of packages we need to send, the size of the team. So everything kind of doubles in 3 years. And therefore, you have to factor in your refactoring work or architectural work. And so we just have a certain bucket of backlog items in that sector, and we prioritize it alongside all the other features we are building. Of course, there's never the easiest of all discussions. Of course, business is desperate for new functionality, but in order to avoid that you run into this dead-end road you were describing, to say, okay, now we are having and created this monster, which is unmaintainable. It is, I think, important to break this down and have not the one big thing, your e-commerce stack, which you need to completely update. But back to the composable commerce approach, I try to look into various components of it, which I constantly need to upgrade or migrate.
Yeah, I absolutely agree on that. Now we talked a lot about technical things, and maybe we're switching to the second, also super important dimension, which is the organization itself. Because from my point of view, having the right organization and the right people, or firsthand the right people in the right organizational structure is definitely key for me. So as a model, you can observe that you have cross-functional delivery teams that enables end-to-end responsibility for the teams to deliver faster customer value. In my opinion, otherwise you will just lose speed while waiting for decisions internally, alignments, meetings after meetings, and so on. How you on Mytheresa are structuring the organization, that the organization is still capable to deliver fast customer value?
It needs to be cross-functional. I mean, I think any other concept is doomed to fail. The challenge is on cross-functionality within technology. This is much more straightforward to realize. But where do you draw the line with stakeholders? So how big do you make a specific team? And as I was describing, we are at this crossroad of fashion and luxury fashion and that world and the development and technology on the other side. So it is to build a cross-functional team, but then also have a lot of alignment sessions, which are always, it's like a submarine where we need to sometimes, we take something, we work in program increments. That means that we usually go into a delivery cycle of something like 4 sprints, 2 months, and then we surface that afterwards, and then we involve larger groups. So we compose cross-functional teams for a period of about 8 weeks, and then we come back up, and then we decide on the next program increment, and that may then change the number of stakeholders involved directly with the teams.
Yeah, that makes totally sense. And I guess about you guys are actually tech-wise also doing it in more or less the same way, if I remember right. And what key roles and ceremonies or processes are mandatory for you to keep this delivery pace high? Is there any crucial recipe for you?
I don't want to necessarily single out a single ceremony because I think they're all extremely valuable for a successful and speedy delivery on items. The sessions I enjoy the most is this big solution design sessions you have directly with the stakeholders, because sometimes you run into this challenge that one side necessarily doesn't understand well the other side. And when you get the right engineers and the right business stakeholders into one room with a lot of open mind, then some magic can happen. So those solution finding sessions and crafting sessions, I enjoy the most.
Super cool. Yeah, I also like that creativity in the room. There's also one question which I'm always asked from clients. So clients, especially, they are starting their e-commerce business. Meaning, if you can design a kind of e-commerce organizational structure from scratch, which capabilities you should have and why, and maybe also with which capabilities you should start?
Obviously, that may differ very much by the use case and where you set up with which goal you set up a technology team. But to me personally, the duality between engineering and product is key. Because often you try to find maybe the super tech savvy product person or the very business minded engineer, and I think it's a good approach to just say no. We need more than one head or one side. We need to bring together these two sides. So I would always start with a strong foundation of product, which works super well with engineering on the other side, and make sure that they start to understand each other rather than trying to find a jack of all trades.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, there's also this wording of T-shaped employees on it, as far as I remember, meaning you're understanding tech and business or business and tech, depending on the angle you're looking on. I would be interested how your role was changing over the last years, because growing the company at that scale is absolutely impressive, no doubts about it. But how was your role evolving, and what were the tasks when you start back in the days, and how it looks like now?
I think what comes with growth and scale is the specialization, right? So, in the past you may have had two site reliability engineers and they could do everything. And now you break into further specialties in each of the teams. And that kind of specialization is also what I mentioned earlier, means like, okay, it is impossible to be on top of each of these specialties. So I feel my role is much more related to building these teams and a culture of trust. That was a challenge over the pandemic, where we have people even more dispersed and not together. But I feel this is my focus right now, to try to create team and culture in which these specialties can bloom and continue to grow.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Maybe we switch also to that question. What is a core capability of a e-commerce CTO nowadays? I mean, of course, the capabilities are constantly changing while the company is growing. But in general, I see some general movements there, meaning how is your tech versus business understanding? Are you a boss or a leader? So you have to evolve yourself. How you see this?
Yeah, I think it's quite different to the sector in which you act. Obviously, there are major differences whether you work for a pure technology company or for an e-tailer, as in our case. So accepting this ambiguity is a core and a starting point, and one needs to be feel comfortable with a certain level of ambiguity. But I feel it is very important to be able to formulate and state the objective you have in technology, because in Mytheresa, technology doesn't have a self-purpose. It doesn't just exist in its own right, and it's not something we can make lots of things fancy, but we need to understand well that we are supporting the business, and how to support it best I feel is to a large degree the responsibility of the CTO. So because technology can do amazing things, but where do you inject technology into the business and get a good understanding of what drives customer value and how can we truly improve, and sharing that wisdom with the other business leaders, I feel is a core competency which helps.
I would be interested how you ensure that you scale the existing team. I mean, the faster you grow with the organization, the harder it becomes to align the people and get the right expectation management towards the people. Meaning, for me, it's important that you're building kind of engineering culture and common understanding what you would like to achieve in the end. How are you dealing with that in the end?
A constant challenge. What we did is we organized around business domains, so nothing like a component team or something of that kind. And the business domain is a reflection of the customer journey on the site. And I feel this is a good model where you not just develop a good business understanding on the technology side, but also to have a strong interaction point and point of contact on the business side. So we have a discovery domain. So this is anything on the website from searching for products and looking at them. The buy domain, which is anything related to checkout and payment integrations and cart. And in order to scale this further, often enough, these domains offer the opportunity to be broken down further. So take this example of buy, then you have a separate team just looking after cart, another one just for payment integration, another one more for inventory and sourcing logic and order management. So the general approach is business domains, because here you get a good sense of who you're working for and why you're doing your work and what problems are you trying to solve. And then it offers a possibility to split this further into smaller groups.
Yeah, I totally agree. Honestly speaking, that was a pretty similar approach like we proposed back in the days at Melt, because this approach, from my perspective, is super scalable, meaning you can start with a smaller team on a bigger business domain, let's call it like that. And as you described it, slice it down and scale the team so that you're getting more and more niche and specialized in that what you're doing with the engineering team and as well with the business analysis team and so on. Super cool.
Yes. And also you obviously have the opportunity to spread the knowledge within the technology group. So if you had beforehand one team looking after the whole checkout and you break it down, obviously you then have the opportunity to offer specialization for each of the group, but you can easily create new teams by maintaining the know-how and sharing knowledge.
Absolutely. Or just entering a new market with a small team which owns a new product or whatever. So the sky's the limit here, definitely. Yeah, super cool. We're coming to the end of this episode, and we're always asking the same questions to the audience, to our guests. Sorry for that. So what tech trends are you actually observing, and what's going on the market? What will affect us in the future, Philipp?
Interesting question, and could be the start of a philosophical discussion in many regards. But if we talk about e-commerce, I think for years now we're observing this hyper personalization, right? Anything from everybody gets a different product view or a different price, to be much more tailored and specialized and personalizing the individual experience. I think, depending, of course, on the sector, that we will actually see a bit of a de-emphasize, that this is going to be de-emphasized, and that it's something else is coming in, which is much more that customers are seeking a personal input from a vendor. So maybe there's a bit of a revival of a shop assistant coming back, but I think we need to help customers clearly to guide through the big jungle of commerce and offers and products and help them on taking the right decisions. And I at least foresee in some areas, a return of the knowledgeable vendor seller, which consults me, which understands my need as a customer, as well as the different products which are on offer good enough and tries to support there the process. So if you talk about technologies, then it's empowering really these people, advisors and store assistants, rather than going down this route of ultra AI-powered personalization.
Yeah. Super cool answer. Philipp, let me say thank you to you. It was a pleasure to have you here. Dear audience, please don't forget to subscribe to the episode or the podcast itself. And please also check the comments below, because Philipp has definitely some job offers to go. And if you're interested in an engineering role, just apply on Philipp's side. He's a super smart and cool guy. So see you next time. And thank you, Philipp.
Thank you, Markus, for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Catch the Tornado podcast. As promised, we have a couple of job openings at mytheresa.com to announce for you. So here we go. The first two are in Barcelona, Spain. The first one is for a senior backend developer. The second one is for a front-end engineer. Then we've got 5 job openings in Munich, Germany. And Mytheresa is looking for a senior IT security manager, an IT operations admin in services, an IT operations admin in infrastructure, an IT procurement manager, and an IT compliance officer. If you're interested in applying for any of those jobs, go to careers.mytheresa.com, where you'll find all information about the open positions and you'll be able to apply directly. Thanks for listening, and speak to you next week.